What's up, surplus geeks? This is the Gear Locker, and I've been working on a couple new kits. Given the vintage that these kits are, I've decided to take a couple trips to surplus stores local to me, and I've found some pretty crazy stuff there. The stores I've stopped at are Army Barracks stores. One's in Connecticut, one's in Massachusetts. They do have other locations, but I've been a longtime fan of these stores. In fact, I worked at one all while I was at college. So I know exactly how cool some of the finds there can be. Although, I have also been finding some pretty cool things online as well. Let's dive right in and show you guys what I've been picking up lately. First and foremost, one of the big pickups I had was this Vietnam jungle jacket. This is one that was dated 1970, and as you can tell, is in pretty darn good condition. My only gripe with it was it's a size extra large. I definitely don't wear a size extra large. I'm a little bit smaller than that, but I do know some people who could get some use out of this. This pretty clean jungle jacket was only $35. Also in the Vietnam sphere from Army Barracks was this hat right here. Now, no, this is not a very elusive gold tiger stripe advisor hat. This is a reproduction. What I noticed in this store is that there were a lot of reproduction Vietnam items that they suddenly had. So my guess is that the owner bought out some surplus collector or just Vietnam reenactor. Regardless, I believe this to be a more militaria copy. And it's a tad small for me, still fits just fine, but for $15, I was not gonna let this sit there. Not for any particular kit, but still a cool piece. Also in the Vietnam sphere, I picked up this set of suspenders. Now, I've got a couple sets of suspenders anyway, so it's not like I needed these, but what I did notice is that these ones were the first pattern ones. I don't own a set of these, and in a future project, I'm going to be detailing a ton of different variants of all of this kind of load carrying equipment. So stay tuned for that later this year. Regardless, this piece was pretty cheap at $6, and I'm not sure on the size. There's no stamping that I can see on it. There was, but it just faded off. However, I'm not really gonna be using this more than just displaying it. And the last things in the Vietnam sphere were these bandages. I don't know if they were overseas at all, but they're a Johnson & Johnson US contract bandage gauze roller kit from 1965. They had 3 of these. I picked up the only 2 that were still sealed. The third one that they had was all like torn up and destroyed. But for 59 cents, I could not let these go to waste. So what I'm gonna be doing with these is putting these in my Vietnam room, which is another project I'll be working on later this year. And that was all the Vietnam related stuff. My next set of things that I purchased are all relating to 80s kit. If you've been following my Instagram recently, you know that 80s kit has been a huge interest of mine. So I've decided to work on some different kits from that era, specifically 82nd Airborne from Operation Urgent Fury in 1983, as well as 82nd and 7th ID in the later 80s with Panama. Rest assured, there will be a Ranger kit or 2 somewhere thrown in there. It's a huge sphere that I'm just diving into, so I've started to pick up little bits and pieces that I can use, not only for a couple kits, but just general 80s stuff. I say we start with some of the uniform pieces. These, I'm really proud of how I picked them up. Number 1, of course, we have the black web belt with this style buckle. I'm not sure what it's called. This is just me showing off a surplus haul. This was really cheap though, I think a few bucks. And it is a new production, but I'm sure I can weather it in a little bit to make it look a little more field used. However, this is what I'm really excited about. I picked up not 1, but 2 Type 1 BDU pants in my size. If you're not familiar, woodland is not just woodland. A common way that some reenactors and collectors tend to specify their woodland pattern items is with different types. There were the very early 80s types, which are typically called Type 1s. And a surefire way to tell that what you've got is Type 1 is not only by the date, but by these white tags. And these pairs of pants, both are gonna go for my Grenada impression. The deal with these is that they kind of are hard to find. You know, typically when people are posting things on online sales or even putting things together in their own surplus store, when you see a woodland pair of pants, it could be from anywhere within the last 40 years. Sometimes you'll see things that are beat to hell and super worn, but they're from 2002. Or you get things that are pretty clean and minty like this from 1981. The thing is, you have to know what you're looking for. Each of these pairs of pants I found for less than $25 shipped. This one cost me $15 plus shipping, and this one, which is a little more worn, cost me $16 plus shipping. So I was really proud of both of these pickups, and you can be sure that you'll see these in my Grenada impression. And now let's go back to the Army Barracks stuff. I wanted to buy a few more things for 80s kit, but as I had mentioned earlier with the first pattern M56 suspenders, I want to showcase all types of variants of different load carrying equipment from the 1960s to the 1980s. And I was on the hunt for some rare variants of things. Unfortunately, I only found one thing that was a pretty rare variant, but I'm excited about it, and that's this web belt right here. This may look like a standard Alice web belt, LC1 to be specific, with the brass buckle that you also see on the M56 belts. However, as I was looking at the tag, I noticed it was green, so it is an earlier variant. LC1 also has this green tag, but on it, some of the only letters I could make out, or only numbers I should say, were 1972. That means that this is an M1972 pattern belt. That was a very short time span between the M56, the M67, and the LC1 stuff. So this is a pretty neat pickup that you really had to dig into the numbers to get. And this only cost me $10. For your standard web belt, that's not too bad, but for something like this, that's very specific and exactly what I wanted, I was pretty happy with that price. Moving on, I picked up this compass and medical bandage pouch. This is one that is an LC1 1976 dated for $2. It looks pretty pristine. I don't think this was used much, if at all, maybe just thrown around in collections and whatnot for a while. So again, $2, pretty happy with that. They actually had a couple of these, but I held myself back and I only grabbed one. Sticking with the pouches, I picked up this piece right here. This is a 2-quart canteen cover. I was not at all able to decipher what date there was on this, but I did know from the coloration of the material, this was an older one. It wasn't a bright emerald green that you'll see with the 90s equipment and on, so I figured this one was 80s. If I'm able to specifically identify what era this came from, maybe I can go pick up another one, or if it's good, I'm good to use it. But still, for $5, I couldn't really pass it up. There's only 3 more things that I had on my list. One of them was this Fulton MX991/U angle head flashlight. I have one of these for my Vietnam collection, but I wanted to pick one up for the 80s stuff as well. These are pretty iconic for those 80s operations. Of course, it already has the red lens. I did check, it does have the spare bulb in here that looked to be pretty clean, as well as all of the different lenses in the bottom. To me, these are always a big risk to buy because it's not like they have batteries in the store where you can test every single one before you buy it. So for $10, I was figuring it was okay to take that risk. I still actually have to test it out myself. Let's do that real quick. I only have one. Damn it. Okay, I'm gonna have to get one. I'll test it another time. Should have been more prepared for this video. But anyway, $10, Fulton. It's okay. I've seen better prices for like things that are super duper cheap on Facebook Marketplace or whatever, but I was there, $10 isn't bad. Now the last 2 things I bought, one I was very happy with until I got home, and the other one I was not so happy with, but you know, mistakes happen. The first one is this e-tool cover. This one is dated 1981, so I figured, hey, great pickup, especially for $5. And it still is. However, what I did notice is the back slide keepers, or the Alice clips, didn't have the actual attachment points, so you could loop it over, but you couldn't lock it in, which I can replace those fairly easily. I guess it might be a bit of a hassle, but I have plenty of those lying around. $5, and I picked up one of these. And last, but certainly not least, is the one that I regret the most, only because I did not look at the price until I got home. This is an entrenching tool. This one does have a little bit of rust on it, definitely has seen some use, but I figured, you know what, I am gonna need one of these for the kit, and in general, these are really good to have. So taking a look at the date on this one, we see US stamped right here, and on this side, we see Ames 87. So it is a 1987 dated one. I wish I could have gotten one a little bit earlier, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I don't think the pattern changed on these at all. My only gripe with this, aside from, of course, paint chipping off and whatever, I can fix that, is the price on this thing. I didn't realize why my purchase was so expensive until I looked at the receipt when I got home. This thing was $40. So that definitely hurt the wallet a bit, and I probably should have looked at the price. Sometimes the surplus store prices can be all over. You can get things for really great deals, or you can get things that are way overpriced. But regardless, I have one now. It was a buy once, cry once, and I probably made the mistake of buying without researching a little bit more, seeing what other options I had, but still. Not too bad overall. And that's gonna wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much for checking out my surplus haul. Let me know what surplus purchases you've been making lately. I always love to see what other people are getting. And if you have some videos on it, send them to me too. I'm always curious. Thank you guys. Once again, this is The Gear Locker, and we'll see you back in the 1980s and in the next video.